All right, we're live. Thank you everyone for your patience. We as a collective, we're a bit late. Um from my role in that, I can only say I'm sorry, Griffin.
Um, am I supposed to apologize?
Well, we as a collective were late,
Oh,
so
we as a collective, yeah,
mm,
and I take full responsibility as well. Presenting United Front from the Seattle Overload podcast, we share the blame and share the credit. So I'm sorry too.
the Seattle Overload podcast regretfully informs you that we were late.
Maddie, I have a question.
Mm.
If would it set off War of the Roses Part Two if I were to ask you to rank all of the English accents?
Um, don't think so.
Like that wouldn't be a hot topic. Like you wouldn't have York
No,
fighting
because I
with
wouldn't.
Liverpool,
Well,
fighting
are
with
you
London.
familiar with the War of the Roses?
I um I've read a wiki article or two.
Right,
I've watched
because
Game of Thrones.
I'd put like the Geordie accent first, and then that wouldn't be either side, really, would it?
Let's see. I suppose. I was really hoping that incited something incendiary and it fell flat on its face. So,
Well, oversharing, really, oversharing here. But my parents, one of them is from Lancashire, and one of them's from Yorkshire, so maybe that's why they're divorced.
ah,
Mm,
I see it. I see. I hope
yeah.
that wasn't TMI. I hope I didn't
It was
force
TMI.
you to share
There's a lot of
something that you
people
didn't want to
watching right now, and you
divulge.
just made me share that. Right, everyone, please tell your friends because we're about to actually do the podcast rather than the Griffin learns about Matthew's parents and and
War of the
accents.
Roses. How many people died?
Oh, you're going to be like, that's pathetic. It's a tiny number.
It is. It's believed. Well, the population density of
Mm.
medieval England was not that crazy. 50,000 men engaged in brutal fighting and around 28,000 died. Now, that's a particularly bloody
Yeah,
number
that's
by
that's
percentage. That's
the
obscene.
you'd almost feel bad for surviving.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
all that was just to see like who should be fucking king.
I mean, that is quite important, Griff. I don't know if you
Yeah. I mean, I
I
shouldn't be
just can't
surprised.
wait to be king.
Do
There's
you
that.
have do you have like a very very distant relative that was tangentially related to some lord family or royal family?
Yeah, my dad's dad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He okay, interesting. And
Mm.
I bet like a lot of people in the UK have that
Yeah, yeah.
story.
Yeah,
Like, oh, I'm related to
like
so and
everyone
so.
basically, yeah.
Yeah. I'm sure everyone in Scotland says they're related to what's his face? Oh, come on.
Robert the Bruce,
No, the other guy.
the other one,
Mel
William
Gibson.
Wallace.
Yeah, William Willis.
Oh, right. Mel Gibson. Oh, we're doing that. Great. Great. Well, that was lovely. All right. All right, let's get this thing started.
I watched a documentary on that struggle, by the way, between Scotland and England. It's very good.
What, Braveheart?
Yes, yes.
As very historically
It's
accurate.
crazy that they didn't involve the bridge in the big battle. Like, why throw the bridge out? That would make such good cinema, like
I
the battle
haven't
scene.
um I haven't
You
watched
haven't
it.
seen Braveheart?
It's unpatriotic to watch it. It's banned in England.
No, it isn't.
It is. It
No, it
is.
isn't.
I mean,
You
I
got you
really
guys are
shouldn't be
you guys
talking about
are
it.
you guys are heavily I mean, you've got cameras everywhere. It's flirting with pivoting to full blown fascism. Don't get me wrong, but you guys aren't like a dictatorship. You guys can watch. Yeah,
Right.
just like Z's of Valor, right?
Welcome to the film episode of Seattle Overload, where Griffin and I will recap the Seahawks victory. Yes, they're going to win every week, but this time the Seahawks victory over the Los Angeles Chargers. And the tape was nice because this was a blowout win. And on both sides of the ball, that's offense, defense. We weren't degenerate enough to delve into the kicking, special team stuff. Sorry about that. But on both sides of the ball, there was some really dominant stuff, which, I mean, it's not really a surprise, but it's always nice when it's not just them getting lucky. There is a lot of like quality play, quality scheming, nice X's and O's. The whiteboard, I can't be bothered to do it today, but also I thought we'd try out showing some pictures and some drawings rather than the whiteboard. See how that goes. See how you guys find it. We're still sort of finding our feet with this one. Griff, we're going to start with the offense.
Okay.
The Seahawks offense, quarterbacked by Geno Smith and led by running back NFC Ground Player of the Week, Kenneth Walker III. Apparently, some beat reporters say he prefers Ken. I don't know if you've seen that.
Yeah, he's a Ken. So we'll call him Ken.
He's a Ken. Okay, Griff. Not quite perfect from Geno, but then there's some circumstances around him that prevented that, but it was pretty good.
Yeah, it was another like, wow, he played that well and still could have been better type of game. And again, like when he's imperfect, there's still a theme of like when he's moved off his spot in the pocket, and he's made plays all year where he has been moved and pressured in the pocket, but then all of his like, he missed an opportunity here and there. It's when he is moved in the pocket. So like that further speaks to the potential of the offense, because as the offensive line keeps getting better week to week with the occasional lapse, right? But as they keep getting better, that just means theoretically there should be fewer and fewer missed opportunities from Geno. So, and then on the flip side is that means he's getting the most out of what the pocket does give him most of the time, So it's like if you're going to be imperfect on those counts, because that means that the whole offense will go as, the supporting cast goes, and Geno will take advantage of it. So yeah, it was still a really, really good game from him and everyone else for the most part.
Yeah, I agree. And the pick was, again, you watch the tape back. Okay, he does play the ball with his off arm, and there is that hook, which I think probably should have been defensive pass interference, but I don't really have an issue with Geno on that necessarily. Maybe a tiny bit late, but then you have to throw it late because Lockett's turning to that side and he hadn't quite turned, and just a weird kind of fluky play. And yeah, I most of the stuff from Geno that I thought could have happened was the pass pro not quite holding up for him to hit the tertiary read that, like, when Geno's really on it, obviously requires excellent pass pro, but when Geno's really on it, it's when, he hits the open like first and second stuff, but also he's given the platform and given the protection to then find, his third or even fourth things.
Right. And on the interception to Lockett, you can tell that didn't deter him at all, because then he hit another stick route to DK with identical spacing, proximity to the defender. And he was tackled right away, but you can tell he didn't double clutch later in the game. It was like he didn't let it affect him at all. The one play where I thought it was on him was that comeback route to Marquise Goodwin on the far side of the field, where the defender jumped it, got underneath it. I thought on the broadcast, I just assumed he was late, but he actually wasn't late. He got it out on time. He just didn't put it wide enough. The ball died on him a little bit.
Yeah, and it was to the wide side of the field, right?
Yeah. And if he's going to try to throw those, he just has to put it out wider and put more on it, tap into more of his arm strength. He got lucky on that one. Then there was the one floater in the end zone. I mean, yeah, he was just trying to throw the ball away. It was a heads-up play from the defender, but it would have been one of those plays where if they did intercept it, I thought, well, that's really unfortunate, but I don't know if I put that on Geno per se.
No.
Just be a little bit more conservative and then throw it further out of the end zone next time, I guess.
Yeah.
At the same time, though, aren't there intentional grounding rules throwing through the end zone, can it not be too far away? Or am I imagining that? Because I know Tom Brady got flagged for intentional grounding when he
I mean,
threw
it
out
seems
of
a bit
the.
random, doesn't it?
Mhm. Yeah.
You can always
Yeah.
argue there's a guy vaguely near the back of the end zone.
Right. For sure. All in all, though, 20 for 27, a little over 200 yards, 2 touchdowns. Um, uh, Clutch on third down, attacked downfield, and we'll get into how they attacked downfield. And then when it was time to, take what the defense gave them, he did it in quick game, and then he did it in the, the intermediate stuff. Protection held up for the most part, only 2 sacks. And I think one of them came on, I think both of them came on third down.
Yes.
So he's not setting the defense back on early downs at all. And
No.
he's taking the sacks in the pocket when he's not scrambling around. He's trying to give the progression life. So, you know, um, yeah. So this game plan.
Well. Before that,
Okay.
on a wider point, the Seahawks offense in true drop back situations, so removing designed rollout, spikes, run pass option, read option passes, basic screens, running back or wide receiver passes, wide receiver reverse passes, double reverse passes, flea flickers, other. So just true drop back situations. They're second in points earned per play behind only the Chiefs, and literally 0.001 behind the Chiefs. And then in all passing plays, they are second in points earned per play, ahead of the Chiefs and behind the Eagles. And obviously, their figure is boosted by Jalen Hurts' ability to move around a bit more. But I think also the fact they're ahead of the Chiefs, and that shows that Gino has mobility and an ability to extend.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously Mahomes can do that, but I think yeah, Gino's probably done it a bit more this season.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's cool watching him take off when he does, because it's like very last resort, but then he's very decisive when he does it. He has a very clear plan. And I think that's him knowing pre-snap where the holes are in the coverage. And he's like, he has it in his back pocket. Like, if I do take off here, I know where I'm going and why. Like on one of that first third down, I think, or maybe the second one, that 3rd and 1 to Mark, where he dumps it off to Marquise Goodwin. He goes to the front side of the concept, and it's like a designed no play action rollout, right? And he quickly realizes nothing materializes. So immediately he's like, all right, well, we went 4 strong and their coverage is flooded. So I know that if I can get to my left, I've got the crossing route coming back, or I can convert on my legs. And he could have converted with his legs, right?
He could
But
have, yeah.
he had Marquise Goodwin there, and he picked up, I think, an explosive, didn't he? Like 20 plus yards on it, something close to that anyway.
Fant was kind of open over the middle, right? Sort of sitting down, like, oh, this is my shot, and it went elsewhere. But it was again, it was good process. Hold on, I can share that. There we go. This is very exciting. Whoa, is Matty gonna mess up and share some details he doesn't want to share, or is Matty just gonna share what he wants to share?
Matty's going to dox himself.
There you go. That's the play. You can see it. Goodwin wide open. Fant was open as well. You can see my mouse as well. There you go. I mean, must not press play, otherwise then we'll be demonetized and copyright
But
strikes.
this is what the picture looks like after he starts scrambling, though, right?
Yes. Well, he's just about to. You see, he's under pressure from Kyle Van Noy.
Because I think because of the fact that this is a rollout, he's thinking high low on the corner. I've got Lockett on the corner, high low on the corner back. You've got Lockett on the corner route, and then is that Walker in the flat, right?
Yeah.
So he's thinking
Little quads.
yeah, and then you've got Marquise coming, and I guess the Chargers don't pass him back correctly.
No.
Yeah, but it's like even when he does scramble, he knows what he's doing.
for
It's
sure.
cool to watch. I mean, he's struck a balance between creativity and decisiveness. It's very cool.
Agreed. And overall, again, highest completion percentage in the NFL, but crucially, with the 11th highest intended air yards per pass attempt,
Yeah.
fourth
He
highest on target percentage.
and like even if you break him down 20 plus yards, I mean whatever yard bracket you want, like 16 plus yards, 20 plus yards, the 20 to 30 yard bracket, he's like top 5 in all of that and some of them top 1 or
Yeah.
2. Um it's crazy, but it's not out of left field. Like I've said this, we said this all last spring
You were
and summer.
first. You were first. It's okay. You were first.
Um
I just didn't want you to cope too hard.
I
I
mean
was
that's
just being a
why
good friend,
I
okay?
was, I mean, even myself, I was talking myself down off the ledge the whole, not, no, what's the opposite of that metaphor? I was talking myself down from
Down
getting
from the
too high.
ledge. That's a bit dark.
Um,
Yeah.
because I was like, well, I don't know, I'm not just going to take this information at face value. That doesn't mean he's going to be one of the best deep ball throwers or one
We've
of the
ever
best
seen.
throwers in the intermediate, but sure enough, he kind of is now.
Right.
Um, but yeah, like when he was at the Jets, like I think his 2014 year, you can go Google the PFF QBs in focus where you can look at their completion percentages at different yard brackets because that data
Mm.
isn't available anywhere else, at least publicly. And he's like top 5 in the 20 to 30 yard bracket in 2014 on the Jets. And it's like, well, he's always had this, like what we saw snippets of last year at the Seahawks when he was starting. He was accurate downfield, sure, even in the games where they didn't go downfield very much. I'm like, oh, he can make the throws. Okay, so I see what Pete's saying when he says he has all the throws.
Mm.
And you go find that Jets stat, you watch some Jets games, and you're like, okay, that's something he has. That's in his holster. He can throw the ball in those windows. Um, and sure enough, it's just when you put him onto a team that has a talented O-line and put him on a team with DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett, it's strength reinforcing strength. So on some level, this should have been predictable. And maybe internally they knew it was, you know.
Well, it seems that way, right? Quietly
Right.
confident. And I mean, this is obviously one of the better case scenarios, but they you know how optimistic Pete Carroll is. I'm sure he saw this being how it was going to play out. Now, he may have been one of the more optimistic guys in the building on it, but
Yeah. But he's
like
optimistic for the hell of it. But yeah.
just living on vibes. So game plan. Obviously, with DK Metcalf going out, and as I said yesterday, my source says he's expected to be out for 2 to 4 weeks, if not slightly longer. And that information obviously may have changed in like 3 days. But with Metcalf going out, the tight ends became an even bigger part of the game plan. Disley played 76% of the snaps, Fant played 73% of the snaps, and then Colby Parkinson played 38% of the snaps. So that's, within that, you can envision a chunk of 13 personnel, but also a lot of 2 tight end, 12 personnel looks. I mean, I don't think like the tight ends will continue to be an even bigger part of the plan. I found it interesting that Pete Carroll on his ESPN Monday show, he mentioned the condensing of formations when he was asked about the tight ends usage and how it's advantageous to kind of narrow the edge down, and how the tight end thing is sort of Waldron's version of that. So rather than like condensed 11 personnel like the Rams did, right?
Mm-hmm.
They just do it with tight ends, and you just get different matchups, but still with like in 13 personnel, a real cluster. And as we
Right.
spoke about, the full house stuff and how that kind of creates opportunities.
And I guess they reserve that for the tight ends because obviously when you have tight ends, you're going to be condensed most of the time anyway. But when you do go 11 personnel and you've got receivers like Tyler Lockett and DK Metcalf, you want to emphasize their ability to stretch the field horizontally and vertically, right? So
Yeah.
you want to stretch them out more. So, but obviously Shane Waldron knows the benefits of condensing things down because, like he said, it makes the blockers more available. And then if that makes the more guys be potential blockers, that makes the defense respond to blocks, and then thus that makes play action all the more effective, right? He can still get that element out of the 12 and 13 personnel, like you're saying. In the occasional, well, no, the full house stuff, like you said. But yeah, so it's a good combination there. And then within that personnel package, we saw a little bit more running this week than we've seen in past weeks. And again, that's also probably related to when DK went out because they came out pretty pass heavy in the first two drives. But they really stressed those under center runs with Walker. Part of that is the Chargers, too high world. You want to punish them for that. But then when they do go one high, they do play a good deal of cover one. You still want to run enough when they load the box up so that they will continue to load the box up when they see under center so that those play actions will hit. And then when they did run their play actions, they were fairly successful off of under center. But I think also the run game is just working.
Yes.
So, like they're just, you can't go away from it when it's giving you that yardage. So there's that side of it too. Yeah. Pat or Maddie, did you have anything else to say about the that aspect of it, the tight end usage, the under center run game?
Well, we can share to the point about the kind of spatial ability that this allows them to maximize, and your point about horizontal leverage. This was an early example where you had this look where Fan actually started over here and then he motioned or shifted. So he started in the full house look, he shifted to a wing look to the right, which creates a one-on-one to Metcalf. They then released everyone to the right with Metcalf on the left. So they basically put 4 strong, which is quite an unusual flow. The Chargers, who are obviously more of like a 2 high team, they rotated down to the 4 strong look because it's very difficult to. It's a natural way of flooding the coverage, right? Of getting the right numbers to that. But you have to compensate by leaving a one-on-one backside. And Metcalf ran a slant, and he's one-on-one, and he gets a pass interference penalty. But like, there's a lot of space here that got him isolated. But yeah, no, it's not gonna work. But anyway, this linebacker basically the linebacker who would ordinarily have been underneath that was basically looking to the other side. So very effective stuff. And yeah, I suspect with Metcalf's absence, that will continue, right? That will only get larger.
Agreed. And it will also provide an opportunity for Fant to really, I mean, he got opportunities this game, didn't quite capitalize on all of them, but it will give him an opportunity to really be a fixture downfield. And then, of course, Goodwin flashed a lot this game. He could become a regular. And then also Eskridge, he had a rough game, but like we said in the recap, not necessarily at the receiver aspects, but more so other things. But that's still, those aren't good, But yeah, so we'll see who steps up, who continues to step up. That'll be interesting. And maybe Will Disley's the guy to lean on. In all honesty, I mean, you can't use him in the same ways you'd use Fant,
Yeah, Fan got some athlete kind of opportunities in this game. It felt like, and he didn't quite capitalize on them.
Yeah. I mean, he looks good running the routes.
And he does look really good. There's just maybe it's just a chemistry thing with Gino because Will route up the sideline, not quite. Then Gino rifles in that kind of cover 2 shot down the pipe where you kind of
almost didn't seem ready for it.
Right, as though he was not expecting the ball, which is a bit unusual given he's running that kind of bending seam route into the open space.
And then he had that one over route. And I mean, he attacked the ball in the air well enough. It's just his hands weren't stronger than the defender. The safety made a great play breaking it up. But
sure,
that ball couldn't have been better though from Gino in very tight space.
Yeah.
You pause the play on the end zone angle when he releases that ball, and you look at where Fan is relative to the Mike Tranquil, and he's like a full 2 yards to the left of Tranquil, and by the time the ball hits Fan's hands, he's a full yard past him, and with the safety bearing down on him, it was just crazy. Anyway, so this game plan in the air, the passing game, the
Yes.
general theme that I extracted was that wherever, whatever coverage the Chargers were in, Seattle
Hmm.
was Waldron, Gino. They were very explicit about their intention to attack the weak spots to get downfield. Like this wasn't we're going to take what the defense gives us type of game, although that was still present. It was, we're pushing the envelope. We're going to go wherever the opportunities are downfield, and we're going to take it. Like, because those opportunities are super narrow, but they are there. And Brandon Staley knows that. He knows, okay, if they go deep, this is how you do it, right? It's
Right.
just that Seattle did that, and they succeeded, I'd say, on the day. And even where they didn't quite succeed 100%, their structure and process was still good. So like
Yeah,
when they
just
were
a lot of downfield route concepts as well, right?
yeah, yeah. Um but like when they're in quarters or to the quarter side of a combo coverage, it's like you've got the outside release fade or go, right? They hit two of them to Marquise Goodwin for touchdowns. They nearly hit DK on the one where I think the one where he ended up getting hurt toward the end zone, where he caught it but was pushed out of bounds just barely, you know.
Hmm.
It's like that's where you've got a one-on-one down the sideline in quarters, you know. You say it's too high, you're capping explosives, you are, but you're really capping explosives from the slot receiver or tight end,
Yeah.
right? As far as the outside release goes on the outside, it might as well be cover one or cover three. It's the same principle. So and Gino, perfect placement on those for the most part. And then also in quarters, like they threw Sale at him a couple of times. The one where Tyler drew DPI, you know, Sale, you run off the outside defender, and then you've got a leverage advantage on the slot defender, and it's like he's running into free space. They didn't get a reception, but they got a penalty, and maybe it would have been a reception if the defender didn't kind of hook Tyler's hip there. So it's like that's awesome. You know, against one high, like they had Fant on the wheel, and they didn't connect on it, but that's them, like, you know, cover one or
Going
cover
downfield.
three. Yeah, go wheel, post wheel. That's how you get there, right? Cover two, they're running benders, like they're gunning it. You know, cover one, cover three, the deep over to Fant, like they're going for it, you know.
So do you think they
Um,
thought this was going to be more of a shootout than it was?
that's a good point. I
Well, I
think
wouldn't go that far.
I think really it's just them having confidence in their ability to take advantage of matchups.
Hmm.
It's, you know, like why would you, to this point with what they've done this season, with the personnel they have at receivers and what's been working for them, why would you hesitate, you know? Like
Sure.
they put their foot on the gas when they came out of the game plan. And then the other reason why they ran so much was because they got in control of the game on two
Sure.
separate occasions, really, with the second quarter lapse, but then in the third quarter they got control of the game. It's like, okay, now
Sure.
we'll run the clock out.
Yeah, I think I agree. It's like a matchup thing where, you know, I think even Denver, they managed to show there was some weaknesses going on here. And JC Jackson, before he got injured, like he was struggling this season. I think they just thought we have better guys than you.
Yeah.
And that kind of proved it. It was really cool that Goodwin touchdown, seeing Goodwin mic'd up afterwards, saying how Gino told him rather than running a comeback to run a fade route, which is perfect against cover four. And this kind of it was trips, right? But they condensed the split of the three and the two, which basically creates this one on one between Goodwin and the cornerback on the outside to the wide side of the field as well. So a lot of room, and so perfectly run route. And what Goodwin was describing is how he was getting this cornerback to think post, because if he's on an island out here and the middle of the field's open anyway, because it's cover four to that side at least, then he's like, well, oh man, I need to stop the post. And so Goodwin really closed space to create space, like stepping on his toes, running inside before breaking to the corner. And Gino was real on target with him. Those two have a connection. Like they have a
Yeah.
real connection.
Yeah. Um, and like Marquise, even though he's 32, his speed is still elite. And the
Mm-hmm.
fact that he has these that feel for those routes that you talked about, with him probably getting more snaps this game, I wonder if we see him starting to be ran on more posts, and if we see him, you
Yes,
know,
please. Yes,
um,
please.
because like in San Francisco, that 1 year he had, I mean, he had like a 55% catch rate, but 900 yards. That's because Shanahan was using him as a deep threat. And
Yeah.
he could run those intermediate routes, but they didn't need him to do that because they had other guys on the roster that could handle it. So he just said, "You're my post threat. You're my deep over threat." Obviously, you've got Tyler Lockett, who's one of the best in the world at that, but uh, over skill set overlap is really useful there. Maybe we see some classic post Yankee,
There we go.
um,
More of a,
or post
well,
cross rather, which is Yankee. Anything.
mm,
Corner post from him off of under center play action, like the flood stuff, right? That we saw in the Saints game with Tyler on that deep post on the one off play action, not the
yeah.
one to end the half. Like, let's see Marquise in that role, see what happens. Um,
Why not have some fun?
yeah, and the thing is, like, defenses are probably still sleeping on him a little bit. If a free safety has Tyler Lockett running it over, he's going to feel compelled to nail down on that, and that's where Marquise Goodwin, the double move on the corner could come in. So yeah, I don't know. I want to see it.
So you mentioned the run game, but it seems I don't know if I'm just seeing stuff or I mean it's all anecdotal, but it seemed they were getting pretty good displacement across the board and maybe they're starting to really get things together. I mean, changing up they're kind of forced to do it with Jackson's injury, but having Haynes in a right guard and then Lewis at left guard, that switch may have set them back a bit, and I think they're sort of finding their feet again now. And the other factor is obviously a different running back there in Walker, but I mean, it was really cool. For instance, Walker's first touchdown, where they're kind of finding ways to get him comfortable. So, like, his first touchdown didn't come on this, but they had gun guard tackle wrap where he said he liked counter in the past, and then here they had like 13 personnel on his first touchdown run, but from the shotgun, as though like, hey, let's try and get you a bit more comfortable here and hitting things a bit quicker. Because I think his issue is, there's always a place for patience, right? But his issue seems to be sort of overdoing it at times.
Mm-hmm. Agreed.
Just needs to hit the hole and understand that the stuff that you may have been able to press and then get access in college, it doesn't really work in the NFL. The margin for sort of creativity is less,
Yeah.
although it still exists. And on some of his best stuff, he is setting up blocks really well
Yeah.
and sort of dancing around in a very unique way.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like when it seems like he is being too patient, like you said, um, it's like he's reading hats to a fault. Like the gap could be really wide, but they could still see a hat in the gap and go, okay, that cancels my read. Or
Yeah.
he'll try to press in a little bit and get that guy to come back a little bit and then go back out. Whereas Todd Gurley, and I use him because we've seen him operate in the exact same scheme, right? If he sees that gap, he's shooting that thing, even if there's a hat or shoulder in the gap. Sees any color in the gap, he's shooting it regardless. And he might give a little subtle thing to kind of give himself an angle. And that's where I think, like with Walker, it's him trying to balance being too perfect with that patience, where being patient is really good and has served him, right? Because a lot of these big runs, it's him being super patient and the right thing happening because of that. So it's like some of these, I mean, we're talking about like potential 6-yarders, like let the guy hit you and then you drag them forward with your
Yeah.
momentum, and they're turning into 2-yarders. And he thinks, oh, that's only 4 yards, I could get a bigger play. But it's like, no, it could actually be 5-6 yards if you hit that. and let the guy, like that's the best you're going to get. Just take it. So if his median run starts to climb in junction with all these explosives and other runs that he has, it's like, I don't know, man, look out. That's I don't know what we've got on our hands at that point. I mean,
Yeah.
it'd be kind of crazy. And you turning back to your initial point, uh, the blocking up front and the interior is really good. Like Damian Lewis, Austin Blythe looks like, I don't know, he looks like Jason Kelsey right now. And
Oof.
indeed, Haynes, like those guys were moving people. So yeah, it was
High
good stuff.
praise.
And we should mention, like, I know the Chargers front in general is weak right now, but they
Mm.
still have a guy on that team named Sebastian Joseph Day, who on the Rams was a monster, one of the best
He
nose
made that
tackles
whole
in the
thing
league.
work. When I simultaneously rejoiced and also got upset because I was like, yes, he's left the Rams and we don't have to deal
Right,
with that kind of BS. But then I was like, oh no, Staley's finally getting, not that I hate Brandon Staley, but Staley's finally getting his, thing to make the two high fits work.
right. So I don't know if he regressed or if Austin Blythe just went sicko mode for 3 hours last Sunday because he was moving
He
him
doesn't
all day
have Aaron
long.
Donald next to him. Maybe that's part of
Yeah,
it. But
yeah,
he was legit for the Rams.
yeah.
Anyway, yeah. Sicko mode Blythe. Uh how did the tackles look to you in pass protection? Because I forgot Bosa wasn't healthy, but Mac is
Yeah.
no joke, and Van Noy has like a speed rush and speed to power, which is a kind of different different kind of problem for these dudes to what they're ordinarily used to.
Yeah, I mean, Charles Cross dominated Khalil Mack, and like I tweeted this. How does Charles Cross go from shutting down Marcus Davenport in the Saints game to getting bullied by Majay Sanders? Davenport is like 280 bull rusher with crazy get off,
Yeah,
and Majay Sanders is a 240 speed rusher. So he goes from dominating the 280 guy to getting dominated by the 240 guy in power moves. And then he goes and dominates one of the most complete edge rushers of all time in Khalil Mack, whose speed to power is as devastating as Marcus Davenport's. How
he,
how does he how does that happen? I know Khalil Mack's having a little bit of a down year, but the traits are still there.
yeah, he had a crazy snatch move against Mac.
Yeah, and that's the stuff from college where like he has like he's got himself a little bag of tricks. Charles Cross does, and we're finally seeing some of that, with his handwork. So
Yeah,
that was crazy. And then on the other side, Lucas. I mean, Lucas had a really good game. He took care of his business. He got maybe moved once or twice where you could say, okay, bad rep, but beyond that, I mean, he was just fine. The tackles were fine, and the guards were fine too. There was a couple play where Damian Lewis got bull rushed on one, and then he seemed fine outside of that. Then when Jake Curhan was in, he had some bad reps in protection. But I like that they're giving Jake reps though. Um, what's fun? What? So they gave Jake Curhan reps. Let's talk about that. Probably just to kind of give him, he deserves to play, right? Because he's a good player in the same vein that they
sure.
were letting Haynes play. But if they when they switch to a run heavy script in the second half, you have a lead. You're trying to finish teams off. Get Jake
He's the
Curhan in there.
closer.
He's the close because he was still blocking people in the run game. So, and so is Haynes. But it's like, yeah, get Jake in there. Let him
Yeah,
finish the game off in the run game.
maybe that's what the concussion spotters were actually doing. They just wanted to see some mauling pancakes from
Oh, I
Kirk.
forgot about that. I
Yeah,
forgot.
that was
Okay.
why Haynes left. But
Oh,
but
okay.
that's cool. We can credit the
Th-
Seahawks for
There goes my conspiracy theory.
yeah, 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 yeah. All right. Have you got anything else in your offense, Griff? I mean, there's a lot of
Um,
exciting things, but are my
no, we're
point
good.
is, are we ready for a defensive transition?
We're ready for the defensive transition.
Wow, how exciting! So, they made Herbert look pretty bad, and coming into this game, as you've wrote in your wonderful notes, the Chargers had mildly above average efficiency coming into this week, but they had their
The
three worst.
third worst.
Their
Who's the script
third
writer
worst
for this
performance of
show?
the week against
Jeez.
Seattle's defense. So their third worst performance of the season against Seattle's defense. And honestly, like, I don't know how you're measuring that, but they
EPA.
padded their stats. They by EPA. Okay, well, they padded their EPA anyway. Especially towards the end of the game, and there's a lot to unpack. But I think for me, the major story is what Seattle did up front.
Yeah, and so it's good that they held another week, actually 2 weeks in a row now, of not just playing good defense but dominating the opposing passing game. And you want to put it in perspective. Well, they're injured at receiver. Herbert himself is injured. Yeah, fair. But if you're going to play someone like that, then dominate them, and they did. It's not like they had a slightly good game; they had a great game, right? So, and Herbert did, outside of what's not related to his injury, he did miss some opportunities. But again, if the difference between not missing those opportunities and missing them makes you go from having a pretty good game to a great game, then that kind of still proves the point that they played really well. Yeah, well, what they did up front, Maddie, do you want to talk about that? The fronts, the techniques?
Sure. As I pull up the image, but what was big was, and you described this really well, actually, and I was in a way which was much more succinct than what I had planned. But rather than being like a 3-3-5, which they call penny, Clint Hurt revealed it. Nice question, Mike Dugar. They call 3-3-5 penny, where it's 3 interior defensive line, 2 outside linebackers on the edge, 1 inside linebacker. So that's your 3 and 3, being Jordan Brooks, and then your nickel, Kobe Bryant, and your strong safety, Ryan Neal, and your 2 outside corners, and your deep safety and Quandre Diggs. Rather than that, they actually did a true 3-3-5. And how is it true? Well, it meant that they had literally 3 interior D-line types. Then they had like Irvin as an edge setting outside linebacker. They had Cody Barton off the ball, and then they had Jordan Brooks off the ball. So they still kind of ran bare front looks out of this. So if we get this up, and they used basically their nickel, Kobe Bryant, as the second edge.
Yeah.
Now, against what the Chargers present, that wasn't so much of an issue. So as you can see here, this is them. They were playing basically to accommodate it. Bryant would play down to a slot because he's the nickel. He'd go to the passing strength. They'd often play cover 4 to that side. To accommodate it, rather than play like a bear look, they had the front slid slightly. So they still had a 3 technique away from Bryant, but then rather than a head up nose, they played this nose in a shade, which is fine because he'd already looked to knock back the center into the backside A gap. And then to enable Bryant to cover down, they had the weak defensive lineman in like a 4-eye technique, mirror stepping in the kind of like the B gap. And that meant Brooks and Barton could really fit downhill, and it meant that the D-line up front were playing pretty aggressive. And it just worked. And it was well suited for what the Chargers were doing. But yeah, what were your impressions?
Well, so I mean, pretty much the same impressions. It ensures that you can play. So the front is, even though it's not, you've got a nose and a shade. The nose is a 1 technique, not a 0 technique. Big Al Woods over the center there. It uses the same thing of bare or tight or any odd space front, in that you've got both the B gaps covered. There are no B gap bubbles, so that makes it really a lot easier on the linebackers to defend the run. Especially when you're out gapped. So they only have to worry about action to the perimeter, stuff like that. Makes it a lot easier. But so to me, what I gathered of what they were really going for here was they wanted to play nickel, but they wanted Cody Barton on the field for specific coverage purposes. And if you want to play nickel and have Cody two off-ball inside linebackers on the field, their stock way of doing that was playing their 4-2-5 or 2-4-5 front personnel, but then that gets you back to square one of having run defense issues. So what they did was really they've maintained the kind of they've been able to maintain the same advantages and benefits of playing bear more or less by playing this front. And they can get Cody out there so they can stay solid for the run, and then they can play the personnel package that they want to play so they can play the specific coverages that they want to play. And we'll get into what those coverages are, and they're just making it fit all together. So it smooths out the problems of their even space front and nickel, and it also allows them to be able to play the coverages they want to play, basically. So they're finding the midpoint between personnel and organizing themselves and front and everything to get it all work together. It's just gives them more flexibility because they still ran their 2-4-5 this game, but it was in more pure passing downs. Like if you look at this picture, you still have a problem. If your 4-man rush, 3 of them are still 300 pounders. That means the only guy that's giving you any real speed is Bruce Irvin on the other side, or replace him with Daryl Taylor or Nwosu or Maffei, right? It's the same thing. You only have one of those guys. So you're still presenting the same problem as you would in the 3-3-5 Penny stuff or the 5-1-5 look, right? And Penny, pass rush wise. But
it's slightly alleviated in the angles being a bit friendlier.
Yeah.
Like having a 1 tech to the 4-eye type. But the body types are still, you need Michael Bennett.
You need Michael Bennett because he could defend where Shelby's defending and give you legit edge rush. And you'd
for
have
a 5th round pick.
For a 5th. Oh my gosh, Matthew.
Yes. So as you take a glug of hopefully coffee.
Not coffee. I have to get up in about 12 hours. So.
Wow. There you go. So yeah, it basically gives you an
10.5 hours actually.
There you go. It basically gives you an extra adjuster because rather than it looking like a 5-1 or a 5-3, and so you only have so many coverage options off the ball, this is kind of halfway between being a 5-2 and like a 3-4, right? Like you have 2 off-ball guys and the nickel, and you can have the strong safety involved if you want him as well. And so if you go to like this kind of look where they actually had Kobe Bryant playing down as the edge, but then suddenly Diggs is able to get involved, and you have these linebackers as well. So it's giving you an extra guy.
The most succinct way to put it is just imagine base 3-4 personnel, and then you replace one of the outside linebackers with Kobe Bryant.
Yeah.
And then
slide the front to accommodate him.
Now, there were also some examples where they were in this personnel, but then they would kick the end to the nickel side to a 5 tech. So it was Quentin Jefferson.
That was quite early. So
that was super early on.
I wondered if that was I need to go back and look at that. I don't know if that was like getting comfortable with it, or I don't know.
But so like that kind of presents the same issues as when they're in their 2-4-5 even space where they can't defend the run. But if you simply replace one of the 250 guys with a 290 guy in Quentin Jefferson, you're a lot better suited to defend the run now. So I think this package gives them the versatility to kick to a 5 when you want to, and still play the 4-eye when you want to.
Yeah. And it was so funny seeing Bryant blitz off the edge like here, like in like a Sam and Will style double edge pressure blitz, but it's a nickel doing it, and it literally looks like a pure bear front. But yeah,
and you have to send the nickel every so often. So
you do to keep it honest, yeah.
Yeah.
But your guy, our guy, Cody Barton, really impressive in coverage, especially to the weak seam.
Yeah. So, and that meant more quarter, half, meaning you're playing cover 2 to the weak side and quarters to the strong side. So to the side that where there are more receivers, you're playing quarters. To the side you're playing less receivers, you're playing to the side that has fewer receivers. You're playing cover 2. Whereas normally they flop that, they play half quarter. But knowing that the Chargers play so much 2-by-2 formation, so they'll put two receivers on one side and two on the other, where the second one is a tight end. That's still the passing weakness, but the numbers are the same. And Gerald Everett is really fast up the seam. And so if you're going to play half quarter, that means you're going to get essentially that weak seam on a one-on-one with the safety. And there's a lot of space there, and a really aggressive safety can nail down on that. But he's going to give a little bit more space because you still have the weak number one receiver to worry about. You're playing 2-to-1 in your quarter technique. So Seattle didn't want to give Herbert that look, because Herbert will throw benders over against almost any look. By bender, I mean a seam route that starts to bend a little bit more toward the open space against too high coverage in the middle. Like call it middle of the field open, so that seam bends, so therefore it's kind of like a post. But they call those routes a bender. So they ran that route 7-8 times this game, and on 5 of them, Cody Barton was in coverage on it. So they're playing cover 2 like Maddie's showing there, and really Cody Barton is playing a technique called the vertical hook. But really, for the purposes of this, if that number 2 receiver, which is the tight end, if he runs up the seam, Cody just has to go match him, carry him all the way up there. And I posted a cut up on Twitter. 5 snaps, step for step with him, Gerald Everett, whoever it was. And he was only targeted once. And on the one time he was targeted, Herbert had to throw it where the only place it could go is a back shoulder throw, and he forcing him to throw it right into the safety leverage. Ryan Neal, that was the one where Neal had that pass breakup.
Mm-hmm.
And it was like perfect coverage from both of them. But it's like Justin Herbert is literally one of the best in the league at it. The one time he does throw it, it's a perfect ball, the only way that ball gets completed. And Cody makes it as hard as possible to even get the throw off. So it's just like, that's something that very few linebackers in the league can do. Seattle happens to have 2 of them, but only one can play will at a time, right? So I think they wanted Cody on the field. They wanted to play nickel, but they wanted to defend the run too. So that's why we saw that's why we saw this personnel package with 2 inside linebackers paired with nickel this game, for that very reason. So that was pretty cool. That's clearly Lombardi's, like Joe Lombardi, I think that's his name, one of the Lombardis. That's the offensive coordinator for the
Vince?
Chargers. Yeah, is it Vince actually? That's his main, like, okay, that's how I get downfield, is Herbert throwing seam routes, and we have to attack the inherent soft spots of the coverage. Seattle schematically didn't want to give it to him, but it only works if Cody Barton does his job, and I think he did it perfectly. I'm sure he probably got a lot of props in the film room after the game, and when they reviewed the tape, because it doesn't work if Cody doesn't do his job, but he did.
Yeah, a great example of the sort of different technique tweaks that they can do. And obviously, when you've got an extra coverage player out there who's off the ball, then you've got an extra tool to tweak the techniques and better play routes.
Yeah. And the problem is you can't play quarter, half, and you can't play your regular personnel, your nickel personnel, your petty package personnel, because that means that weak defender, that weak interior defender is one of your outside linebackers.
Mm-hmm.
You don't want 250 running down the seam. So you can't play cover 6 the way you want to play it right here. So you have to play it with 2 inside linebackers, and it worked. So it was really cool to see them like recognize we need this skill set there, but how are we going to work this with how are we going to solve the conundrum of being the front and the personnel working together? And this is their answer. So it's pretty cool. I think the other big thing this game was maximizing their 4-man rush when they were in their true regular 3-3-5 nickel stuff. Because like, yeah, you play bear or tight, but in this case bear, because you want to plug the run, right? You want to be able to stay sound for the run and have numbers in the passing game. So you clog up the bubbles. But then the problem is you don't have a good 4-man rush because, again, 3 of them are 300 pounders. The other guy is an outside linebacker. And the spacing isn't great for the other edge, who again is a 300-pounder because he's in the B gap, right? So you're trying to expand out to the C gap. So how do you solve that problem? Well, you have to give the guy that is edge rushing, the 250 guy that is rushing, as good of a chance as possible. So you've got two main considerations. One, you want to make sure the coverage, the protection doesn't get slid to him, or you want to force one-on-one. So you want to give him as clean of a one-on-one as possible. But then the other side of it is you want to keep the offense guessing which backer could rush and which backer could drop. Before I get to that second point, though, about which backer's rushing and which backer's dropping, just purely for the guy that is rushing, whenever they did rush to that side, they would have the near three technique, the guy that's in the B gap, stunt the A gap. So that means that guard has to kind of stay home for either to carry the stunt or to stay square for the looper rushing over the top of him. That means that the edge rusher that is rushing gets a clean one-on-one the whole way through. So they made sure that whatever side is rushing, we're running that same stunt where the three technique rushes the A gap and the nose gap flips over. So that was a clear theme.
Or here, another example was the three tech kind of picking the tackle for then the edge rusher to loop into the A gap.
Yeah.
And I think I know Nwosu leads the NFL in pressures right now, but I think he had 11 in this game.
Absurd.
11?
He had a very quiet 11, but that's because he had so many of those almost sacks. But he was still affecting the play, though, like positively for the defense. So he was everywhere. Left side, right side, inside moves, power moves, outside moves. I mean, the dude was alive. And Taylor had a good game, too. It was another good game for Taylor. But
it was interesting. He sort of down the stretch. He didn't get much play. Even in the clear pass situations, I wonder if he's hurt or managing something.
Well, didn't he actually get dinged up in the middle of the game? I think he did.
That would explain it.
So you had your Nwosu moment. I had my Phil Haynes moment.
Yeah, except it was with Taylor, but that's fine. Yeah.
Oh.
You said
anyway.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, let's turn back to my other point, though, about the four-man rush. So the other way of getting as much out of a four-man rush and odd spacing is by playing with who can rush and who can drop. So by toying with that expectation, because then that means the offensive line, the quarterback, they have to go, okay, it could be either one of these guys. So at least you have the element of surprise to your advantage if you're the defense. So if you're a nickel and you're playing, say, let's assume the 3-3-5 stuff. So you've got, two edge rushers, two 250-pound outside linebackers, right? And the three interior guys. If the defense, the offensive line, the quarterback is like, all right, which one of these guys is rushing? I'm going to first identify, okay, where's the nickel? And okay, say the nickel's to my left and I'm Justin Herbert. I'm going to then assume that the linebacker to that side is rushing. Because if you drop him, you're going, okay, the only way this can work, assuming the too high shell presentation holds and assuming a four-man rush, right? If they drop him, that would then mean that Jordan Brooks pushes to the weak curl or quarter flat. Uchenna Nwosu is now the middle hook defender and Kobe Bryant stays. Otherwise, it doesn't make any sense for that coverage. So therefore, I know Nwosu's rushing and Darrell Taylor is dropping. So that's how you know from there, where to slide the protection, or at least the offensive line, the left tackle or right tackle knows who to key and who not to key, right?
Yes.
So the way you play with that assumption is, one, yes, you give them the look that they think every so often, right? In fact, most of the time you could argue. But then if to play with that assumption, you then, okay, if I do drop Nwosu so that they can't just make the assumption of knowing who's rushing and who isn't, you have to then switch the coverage up. So they would indeed drop him, but they would kind of drop him into that bonus hook and then spin the safety down and then play cover 3. So it's not such an easy, so that it's an easy drop, but then you're playing a coverage that fits it, that accommodates that drop for the outside linebacker, because you don't want to put the outside linebacker in too tough a situation, right?
No.
But then it keeps the it's to the benefit of whoever does end up rushing that fourth rusher. So all that to say, it's just Clint Hurts got these bag of tricks. He's like, yeah, the spacing isn't great, but I'm going to make it so that over the course of a game, I'm giving them as much of a chance as possible through, what I'm scheming with the stunts and what I'm scheming with who's rushing and who's dropping, so that they at least have the element of surprise to their advantage.
Yeah.
So it was really cool stuff.
Well, and to this, yeah, to like on a wider point, they had defensive issues, right? They sort of had to change a bit and fix them. And this was a game where I felt we saw some real building blocks, right?
Yeah.
And we saw some real variation in calls. We saw the new nickel thing we spoke about. We saw the rush stuff you're talking about. We saw it really coming together. And we're saying, okay, they ran so much cover six, so quarter, half to remove that weak seam, as you've pointed out. Well, the worry with that is to the front side, how do you handle dagger, right? Like, how do you handle that? And I feel like the pass rush was there in that it was pretty good. Like, if Herbert had gone through, his first, maybe second read, the pass rush was there. Like, it was reliable. The rush and the coverage worked together so well. And there was rarely like an opportunity for Herbert to push the ball down the field and get the access to the coverage beater, because every coverage can be beaten. And I don't think Lombardi called like the worst game. Like, I think he actually, I know that it's like a really big point in Los Angeles with the Chargers. Like, they're a big check down offense, or like not even check down. They just spam the intermediate, right? But I felt he actually tried to get some real downfield beaters on tape and get it done. But there was few mistakes from Seattle, but also the coverage was really helped by the rush, and obviously vice versa. And
Yeah, for sure.
just so exciting to see it all sort of, it's
together.
progress again. It's starting to happen.
Yeah, and like when they did say drop the edge to the side of the nickel and played that cover three spacing, which is like a super flooded cover three, where you're out, where 250 guys your strong hook, and then Brooks is your weak hook and Cody's your weak flat, or whatever. No, it's not possible. Not Cody. Where Ryan Neal spins down to the weak flat, right?
Yeah.
Like their collective coverage is really good. Like how many times did they actually run like sail and Kobe Bryant get leverage that sail, that out route, and then Brooks takes the final three through, and then you've got Ryan Neal pushing accordingly depending on the backfield distribution, like if it's strong flow or weak flow. But it's like wow, they're playing defense right now. Like they didn't give them anything easy with those combinations, and some of them were pretty tough. Like that one throw that he did complete out of trips to sail when Herbert threw it to Everett, like that back shoulder adjustment. You are not completing that pass with the back shoulder throw. Like that only gets completed because Herbert realizes if this works, it's because I'm throwing on the back hip. And Joel Everett made a great adjustment. But it just kind of goes to show like that play wasn't open as designed, but Herbert gave it life, to his credit. But it just goes to show how well they're playing collectively in their zone drops and everything. That Ryan Neal interception, they were playing quarter half, right? So quarters to the strong side, and they just kind of ran like that. It's not quite a Hank concept, but where the you get like a corner stop route, the swirl route, then you have a flat route, and then you've got the middle sit route, right? So it kind of looks like curl flats with like a intermediate option, right? So I mean Ryan Neal because they're playing cover two to his side, and he doesn't have a seam to carry. He can just pack the middle of the field to get depth in his zone, keep eyes on the quarterback. He doesn't have any other threat to worry about. So Maddie's got the picture up here. So he can just get depth, just outside the hash. And then you've got Jordan Brooks realizing that his number two receiver's up the field and three is to the flat. So he's just going to get depth up inside his
chipping. Three's not even flat yet.
Yeah.
He's not fast. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So Brooks is like, well, I'm going to stack my zone. And Neal's saying, maybe I've got something from the week one, but I'll just stay outside the hash and read the quarterback. And then they both converge. I mean, if Neal didn't,
it looked like cover three. Like when the interception happened, it looked like cover three because they were like tightly packing as though like hook and hook.
Yeah. Yeah, it did. Um,
I love that.
yeah, yeah,
and
that
and
was a
I
great
think
play.
Herbert thought his back to the flat would get matched by Neil as though he was a quarter flat player and playing on the cover four side.
So absolutely, I think he thought pre-snap, okay, Seattle's playing half quarter, quarter. Neil's going to go to like Neil won't be anywhere near the picture, and I only have Jordan Brooks to beat. But then, like
And why
the
would he
funny,
think that? Well, pre-snap, Woolen always is showing press, whether it's 4 or 6. Sorry, whether
smart,
it's 6 or 8, quarter, quarter, half, or half, quarter, quarter. And Jackson's always pretty good at showing off. He's kind of the off
yeah,
corner, and Woolen's the press corner, whatever.
that's
Um,
true. So he doesn't know. Is
he
he
doesn't
a
know.
flat defender or is he a deep shell or deep quarter defender? That's true. And that was a big theme last year with Ryan Neal showing press, or not Ryan Neal, DJ Reed showing press, right? And then coming off of it and then inter them intermixing cover two and cover four to that side, right?
Yeah.
So that's to their the fact that okay, that's a great point, Maddie, because
Oh wow, here we go.
everyone everyone knows now in the league Tariq Woolen is a press monster, right?
Mm-hmm.
So they're always going to make assumptions about what's going on in the backside when they see press.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great point. So they use that expectation, that assumption against the offense. Wow, deception, lies. Okay,
I love it when they lie.
me too.
So I guess we should probably talk about players rather than talking about nerdy scheme. Real quick, we touched on Nwosu. Irvin had a great game and played a lot. Like, let me get his snap counts, but he like looked like he didn't look 35. He didn't look fresh off the street. He was everywhere, and he was just hustling, and the whole team is hustling, right? Like they're out there for well, I swore they're out there running and hitting. They're out there flying to the ball. They seem more confident. But yeah, Irvin brought something, even in like bonus hooks, like dropping as Griffin described, like in their bonus fire zones and stuff. Like he was doing some like impressive work. And where's his snap count? Here we go. Bruce Irvin, 34%. It felt like he played more than that, but I guess that's because he showed up so much on early downs, and then he was in on passing downs where I expect to see Taylor. Anywho, um, corner wise though, Jackson was fantastic. He was off a lot of the time, and he was often on the. It just so happened he got his fair share of cover four snaps. Although, saying that they played some cover two to side, of course, but he was often off. But his ability to break, stay over the top, be patient, and then he should have had a pick. They have a nice pass breakup, but he just looks really good and confident, and like he's kind of earning that. I know he's going to get pushed by Trey Brown, but like good for him. And then
Yeah,
it seems to be clicking for him. And then Woolen had a very quiet game. He was trying to he mixed up a different cover two technique where he man turned it and then looked back. So they were really trying to get Herbert to make a mistake,
mm.
but the ball just didn't come his way. Really, I mean, he had one nice pass breakup. Um, Diggs looked good. Neil looked really
he
good.
yeah, agreed. Well, back to Woolen really quick. So he had that
Mm,
one that in breaker, that dig. It was drift or strike, right?
yeah,
Play action dig. Like he covered that up. They had the one deep shot that they tried on him, and he just was all over it. Herbert was just giving the receiver a chance, but Woolen was all over it. Then he had that one. Well, he gave up the one touchdown on the shallow route, but that was a tough concept, right?
yeah,
And then that other one that was really well defended, but the guy just came down with it. The one where he and Kobe converged on it.
yeah.
But anyway,
Brooks was amazing. He's really benefiting from them just playing a bit better up front. He's running and hitting. Barton was good. So yeah, very great defensive performance overall. And there's a
yeah,
few coverage tools that they're doing to mix things up in their looks on the back end as well that we haven't been able to talk about. But I mean, they'll keep doing them. So look for
yeah,
those in a different episode.
One thing though, I want to say, like, yeah, Cody Barton gave up 2 receptions toward the end of the game. He gave up the one at like weak side choice, or maybe it was just an angle route or Texas route from the running back. But and then he also had the one, the touchdown right at the end of the game. If you look at
Mm-hmm.
that play though, Ryan Neal's guy is also equally open. So either of them could
Yeah.
have given up the touchdown. Then the one that Cody gave up, tough route. Yeah, he gave it up. I think the point is, like, all those guys that you just mentioned all gave up a couple of completions this game. Like,
Yeah.
that's just football to a point.
Unfortunately, yeah.
So when you have a play or two that you give up, but then you also have all these other positive plays, as every other player did, it's like, let's put it all in perspective. But
Call
so
a
that's just,
different coverage if you don't want to give that up. There's no linebacker who covers Eckler like that.
right. So that's just me white knighting for Cody Barton. It's like,
There you go.
let's put it in perspective, gang. Anyway,
Yeah. Okay. So good defensive job from you and the Seahawks. Now let's get to the
you too,
Giants.
Maddie. You too.
Oh, thank you very much. I'll doff my cap. The Giants, the somehow only one lost Giants, and this is going to be interesting because all the stuff we've talked about, I don't know how much that transfers, especially in the defensive side, to what New York does, because mobile quarterback, power running game, probably heavier personnel, not as much of a passing game threat, although a lot of kind of multiple concepts, and kind of what you may term cheese, cheesy stuff, gimmicky stuff. And they're kind of scheming their butts off out there. So how much of like what does the defensive game plan look like? That's going to be interesting because
For sure.
it can't be as vanilla as it was at the start of the season, just because they were working through some things. But also we don't really know what their kind of like base 3-4 stuff is beyond, like, the basic stuff. So that'd be interesting.
Agreed. When they play cover three, I don't think they can hold that shell very long. I think they need that guy in the box for the quarterback
Yep.
run game. And then just trust like their rules and coverage. See what you can get away with, like, because they're playing cover three really well at the moment. But then do they have more answers? Will they play, will we see like Robert or Buzz rather?
Well, yeah, because like in this past game, we saw them throwing a bit of Diggs coming and down into the strong hook.
Right. Like 3 Buzz, right? Strong
Yep.
Buzz.
Yep.
I don't know. So yeah, maybe we'll see more, like you said, more cover three variations. But then I'm really curious what they decide to do, like when they go nickel. What personnel and front blend are we going to see? Is it going to be the 5-1 stuff, or the more, what we saw this game, like the 3-3-5? Well, I'm calling what we've been calling 3-3-5-5-1. Do we see like the 4-2-5 personnel, but with the that
We need the name
that
for
form?
it.
Yeah, what is it called?
Mm,
We'll find out.
who knows?
We'll find out.
And then on the other side of the football, this could be a Geno versus Jacksonville game because they run a lot of man coverage. And there's some kind of exotic pressures where you might get like checks into run plays, right? Like remember Penny against Detroit, the 2 checks on 3rd and long situations. You'd also think that Martindale would coach his players to the point where, hey, if we're in 3rd and long and we show this exotic front, expect run, and they probably execute a bit better. Yeah, how do you see that playing out? Are you on board with that, or is this a tougher matchup for Gino?
I think it can be. I think I think they can handle this. His numbers against the blitz haven't been great this year, but that's been in the aggregate. That's kind of because of the games that have been bad have been really bad, but then they have a handful of games that have been pretty good those at the same time.
Right,
So it's kind of
and
a
like the 49ers game, they got pressured a bit and they hadn't fully opened it up yet.
agreed. And what was, let's remember what the response was, the game plan adjustment against the Cardinals in the second half. It was running more 12 and 13 personnel, right? Or more 22 and 13 personnel rather, and they were moving the ball. So with DK being out, that provides even more reason to lean all the way into it. See if they can beat them at their own game, block it up, and then play action them to death over it. At the same time, though, I think they handled a lot of the stuff from Dean Pease, who knows Wink Martindale very well in the Falcons game, right? So
True.
maybe this. Go ahead.
Although they had some issues going downfield on that, right?
Against Atlanta,
Yeah.
didn't they?
I
Trying to
might
think.
completely
Well,
disagree.
no. You're right. They didn't get the fade going at all. They had a couple of looks and they just didn't connect. The looks were there, but with what they did in the Lions game following that week, and like how pointed they were about taking advantage of it when it was there in this Chargers game, like I think we'll see them just going for it when it's there. But then also the Falcons game, when they did get explosive, it was that under center high cross concept, right? Like the deep over to lock it. And then I think did we see Fant running it, or was that against the Cardinals?
I think it might have been Arizona.
Yeah, so I think
they got that in their
that's
locker.
how they'll. But so back to your point about Jacksonville, though, most of the explosives they hit were those over routes and crossing routes. Like in
There we go.
that
Exactly.
18 to 30-yard range. So I think
So,
that's
yeah,
what we see this game.
Giants have run the second most cover zero in the league, and hold on,
I wouldn't do that against Tyler Lockett. Don't even think about the quarterback, for example. Like if whoever the quarterback is, I wouldn't play cover
and
zero.
the fourth most cover one.
Just remember when the deep one of the deep posts against Detroit,
and the third most 2-man. So they just love man coverage.
I think Seattle eats on offense.
There we go.
I think it's
that's
the wrong.
That's what to be clear, when I said a Jacksonville game, that is what I was implying.
Yeah, it's the wrong kind of blitz team. If you look at Seattle's numbers and think, oh, they're bad against pressure, which they have been, this is not the type of team that they'll be bad against.
Okay, so defensively, as we've already spoke about the defense, so you're not listening to a crazy podcast. Well, we are kind of crazy, but are you? I didn't ask you how positive you feel about that or negative, because I'm a bit scared because mobile quarterback, gap running scheme, heavier personnel, Saquon Barkley. Okay, the receiving talent.
I think they were pretty well situated actually for Trey Lance with what little we saw. I think they'll have a similar game plan and it will work with the guys in the middle playing better for reasons that we know. They're playing slightly different front with slightly different techniques, right? And then I think everyone else in the back seven coverage wise is just playing better. So and playing their rules better. So I don't see why this game should get out of hand. Maybe I'll say the Giants don't score more than 20 points. So my guess will be barring no turnover or something like that, right, in the end zone or in the red zone. My guess is 28-16 Seahawks.
Nice. The spread is the Seahawks are 3-point favorites, which against a 6-1 team, even at home, is nice. And the over under is 45. And you said what, 28-16? Was that correct?
Yeah.
I say the Seahawks win.
That's the under by 1.
There we go. I say the Seahawks win 31-14.
Okay.
There we go. Thanks everyone for tuning in. Please, if you're watching right now, like the video. It's 4:10 a.m. here. I'm a nutter. I've gone off the rails.
You are.
If you're listening, please subscribe if you haven't already, and give us a 5-star review if you haven't already. Follow Griffin on Twitter at CMikes Spin Move. Follow me on Twitter at Matty F. Brown. Follow the podcast on Twitter at Seattle Overload. We appreciate you tuning in, and we'll be back with live reaction from that Sunday game against the Giants. Also, please do comment on the YouTube video. Let us know how this format works. The whiteboard is still present, as you can see, but I feel if we could, maybe I could annotate some of these stills he might be on something. But until then, thank you very much. Have a great evening, morning, day, week, weekend, night. Good night.